All right, episode 10 with Lizette. And so we just got finished with 9, and I wanted to reestablish a little bit something we just talked about with the last episode. We're going to get into culture today a little bit. We're going to talk about how we manage blue-collar environments, which we get a lot of questions about. And Lizette has a ton of experience with this. She's been with her parents' company and essentially her company now for 10 years. She's the chief operating officer of 2 different companies. 3, I think, possibly, if you want to get really technical. Multi-million-dollar business, one of the California's leaders when it comes to flowers, distribution, builds, and so we're going to talk to her about culture and management of blue-collar workers and retention, things like that today. So episode 10, listen in. You'll really enjoy this one. Please like, subscribe to the podcast, to YouTube, Facebook, all that fun stuff. We'd greatly appreciate it. Say hi.
Hi.
All right, so Lizette, let's talk a little bit about blue-collar work. This is really my world as well as yours.
Yes.
With Green Guard, we can't get more blue-collar than what we do because it's night work, wet, grimy, greasy. I mean, I don't think there'd be anything more blue-collar than what we do. I think you're pretty close to it too. I'll start by saying I think culture is everything when it comes to the blue-collar world because most people, I would argue, that are in the blue collar world that doesn't require like specific trade type skills. Mm-hmm. Even though ours probably kind of falls into a little bit of the trade side. Yeah. People didn't raise their hand when they were 19, 20, 21 years old saying, I'm gonna pick flowers or I'm gonna clean a greasy hood. It's not what they anticipated doing, right? So whatever, they followed a certain path in their life and they're in the position they're in. And so I would imagine, like for example, Green Guard, and I tell people this pretty openly, you don't have to necessarily share this, but out of 10 people that we hire, I would say at least 5 don't work out in the first month. We have a really, really high turnover in the first month. After the first month, it goes down to like 10%. Mm-hmm. The reason why is because, to be frank with you, for Green Guard, it's because they're working nights, and a lot of people either have some form of commitment at home, relevant if it's significant other, children, whatever it may be. They think they can swing the whole moonlighting, do that, go home, sleep 3 hours, take care of the kids, do whatever they do, and then go back to work. Because of what we do is a relatively dangerous job, they're climbing ladders, they're dealing with grease, chemical, all that fun stuff. Pretty clearly in the first couple of weeks, we're going to know if they can cut it or not, right? So a lot of that turnover is self-induced. We make that decision. Some of it's because they simply clearly don't do it. You and I were talking about off camera here, which is a very frustrating part of both of our businesses, is that people literally just don't show up. Like and it's like drives me nuts. Luckily, I don't got to deal with it probably as much as you do. My general manager does, but when I see it, I'm like, you just no call, no showed to work. Like
Right.
I think we were raised in an environment where that's not even an option. Like you wouldn't even think twice about doing that, right? So it's hard for us to even comprehend why that happens. But it happens quite often for us. Generally in the first week, because what they'll do is they'll go a couple times and they're like, nope, this is not for me, screw this, right? But you and I are like, why can't you just make a phone call and say, I'll just finish out the week or something, right? So we do a lot of different things from a culture standpoint to improve that. But before I get into that, tell me a little bit about your experience with the blue collar side of your business, because clearly you have your office. I would imagine your office employees are probably, you retain them a lot better than you do the people out in the field, right?
Absolutely. So. I mean, at least the office employees let you know or give you a 2 weeks notice most of the time if there's a reason that they're leaving. But unfortunately, we have 2 different, I would divide into 2 areas. We have the field workers that pick flowers. That's a task that has to start early. Some of them start, depending on the heat, especially in Valley Center and Fallbrook, they'll start between 4 and 5 a.m. so that they're done before, it's too hot and whatnot, and they're picking flowers. We also, a lot of our flowers are on slopes and hills, so they have to be on foot sometimes. It is a very demanding job physically, and our employees are awesome for, the ones that we have for doing it. But yes, when we first hire employees, I mean, that first week is very telling if someone's going to stick around or not. And it is that first week that's key. And if they don't make it, they basically just don't show up the next day. And it is 100% no call, no show. You will 100% see them on payday because they want to pick up their check, and that's when they sign their termination paperwork. But, on exit interviews, it basically it was just too demanding for them. And then we have the packing staff too. In our industry, you are extremely busy for like the morning part of it, and then afterwards it's a little bit more leisure, but that's when you're meeting all the cutoffs and
for deliveries of different shipping companies.
For different shipping companies. So we have to meet all the cutoffs for trucking companies, and that will also be very telling of employees if they can handle the stress that comes with those few hours, because orders, especially with the way the economy has made things, orders come in that day for the most part, unless they're like the retail stores where you can plan ahead. But it's very much like if you get an order for 100 boxes, you're packing 100 boxes.
No option, right?
No option. So we have to make that deadline, and people can't handle the stress of it sometimes.
So how do you when it comes from an interview perspective, or from even after you've hired them, so you paint as clearly of a picture as you can reasonably do without overselling the position? I talked about that in a previous podcast. You don't want to oversell a position, because all that inevitably does is have them quit.
Yeah.
Right? You don't necessarily want to scare them away in an interview, but you also got to be pretty transparent with what they're going to be dealing with and sell the culture versus the position. I mean, that's what we have to do anyways. So what does that look like from your businesses? How do you guys position it, saying, this is going to be stressful, this is going to be really hard at times, you're going to have to work your ass off, you're going to have to be in heat, without them saying, why the hell am I sitting in this interview? What's the best way you guys approach that?
With the field work, you kind of, you just have to be honest actually in that regard, because you have to say expectations up front. You have to be able to walk, you have to be able to go up hills, you have to be able to carry a certain amount of weight. But it is, when they go there, for the interview, they get to see the people that they're working with, basically.
Is it at the fields then, typically?
Sometimes depending on the situation, it's location there or the warehouse.
Gotcha.
To meet with HR, or HR will meet them there. But a lot of the people, for the most part, have worked in agriculture to some degree, to some level.
They have a better understanding of it.
A better understanding of it. They know it's taxing physically. The new people that come in, there's things that you discover. We had someone who found out they were allergic on the first day, and that's like, that's hard. Yeah. And then it's like, okay, well, now you can't work here. There's nothing you can do about that.
Can't fix that, yeah.
So the people that don't know, it's a little bit harder. You try telling them about the benefits and stuff, but field work is field work, and it's kind of hard to say there. In packing and warehouse stuff, I think people are just kind of eager at first, and what we struggle with more so at our Fiorabella office is that we're located in Watsonville. That is an agriculture area. That whole area is dedicated. It's known as like the berry capital, and they produce the most berries that get shipped throughout the entire United States. You have your Driscolls there, you have all big companies, and it's all field work. Well, they're seasonal, very seasonal, and they start right after Mother's Day, which is kind of good for us because we get to retain the employee for Mother's Day, but Mother's Day is over, they're gone a lot of times, and that's because they get paid by what they pick.
Yeah, it's performance-based.
Performance-based. So, the really young ones that are really great in health will just go and pick, but sometimes you can keep them because they really enjoy the environment. They enjoy like the people that they're working with. They like their managers. They like the fact that, we let them listen to their music. And
does the environment sometimes not allow that for your competitors, where they're a little bit more strict when it comes to that type of stuff, from what you've heard?
Sometimes they seem to be more strict, but
just depends on the company, I presume.
It just depends on the company. And sometimes they just really enjoy working with you, and they see that, I think they see that we care about the employees. Like I had previously said, we try to strive for being corporate with a family feel, and we really get to know our employees, whether that is good or bad. There's a fine line because you don't want to know too much, but they're not just a number on the payroll. They're not just a name. They have a story. They have families. They have mortgages to pay. Rent,
they have a reason
whatever.
why they're there.
Yeah, and so there becomes that very human element to it, and you care about your employees, and they see that we do. After like a really busy holiday. And each company structure is different. Like we just had Valentine's Day happen, right? Our company up north, they're like, no, don't bring us food during the holiday rush because we want to sit there and enjoy it. Bring it to us afterwards. So we throw like a party,
But that works for them, though.
That works for them. Down south here, they're like, no, bring us the food as we're working. So it's just different. You make it work for them differently. We try to cater to them. You're just having a 15-hour day. You're on your feet. Yes, we're bringing you breakfast. We're bringing you dinner. We're bringing you lunch. Of course.
I think sometimes those things kind of go. I can tell you with Green Guard, probably until 5 years ago, we did not do a good job at that. Mind you, we're only 10 years old, but we didn't do things like Friday barbecues, which we do every Friday, where we're outside barbecuing burgers and hot dogs and all that stuff. We didn't play music. We didn't do contests or give them pool tables or the things that kind of build that environment where people want to be around each other, right? It's not the pool table that necessarily, or the food that necessarily is a reason why they do it. It's the fact that when they do that and they're in that environment, then they start getting along with, I think, the people that they work with, or they get to know them at a higher level, similar to what you're saying, how you know your employees. And I can tell you specifically with Green Guard, at our headquarters, because of just our size here, we have 4 or 5 managers that hang out on the weekends outside of just working, right? And they're around each other, God knows how many hours a day, 10, 12 hours a day, and you're like, God, you guys want to hang out again on the weekends? What's wrong with you, right? But the reality is that we've built that environment and they've bought into it, where they get along really, really well, and it's really helped with the retention, right? And so, to your point, it's not the food, but it's the fact that as leaders we try to just build environment for them to then grow into it, right? I think that's probably the best way of putting it. And you got to, bet to what you were saying, you got to realize what's important to people. So for one person, having food might be important, but then some other people might not be, and you just got to recognize that, right? Maybe they want a pat on the back or some type of positive recognition, right?
And that's definitely something I had to learn too. Like I said, working for family and knowing that, I didn't come from an environment where you got pat on the back, where you said, good job for that. You were called out more for your mistakes. Then it was also a learning curve for me, and also taking management courses and going to seminars to remind myself constantly to also thank employees for their hard work and reward them for it. It's still a work in progress. I definitely feel our company could do more, and that's what we're striving to do.
I think the word that I always use for that, I've used it in past podcasts, is positive discontent. You're doing a good job, you're doing your best, but you always want to strive for more, right? If you ever become, otherwise the alternative to that is becoming complacent, right? I think you and I have a very similar story that way. My parents might disagree, but from what I remember, I don't remember getting a lot of positive reinforcement. On the other hand, I've been in sales my entire career, so for me, my reinforcement was just being successful in sales. But the downfall to me on that is that because of that, I just knew when I was doing well. You either performed or you didn't perform, right, in the environment you're in. Unfortunately, not everybody's like that. People need to have that reinforcement, and I was terrible at it. I mean, it's the worst you can get. I would just be like, why the hell didn't you get that report done? Versus man, I just worked 12 hours today, and I missed one report. And I just, I was a young entrepreneur, and I was ignorant, and just I don't care if you got all that done, you still didn't get your job done, and that's not the right way to look at things, right? And so it's definitely a learning experience from that perspective. And then to kind of elaborate on what we were talking about when it comes to knowing your employees, I know most about each one of those managers when it comes to one that one of them likes to do on the weekend, where he likes to go out and go to the bars and have fun with his friends and then go camping. Another one is more of a video games guy. Another one wants to spend time with his wife and go running. And those facts like that, for example, the one that likes to go running for his birthday, bought him a Roadrunner gift card, right? If I would have bought him a video game, he'd be like, dude, I don't play video games. What are you doing, right? And even though maybe the thought would have been, he would have appreciated it, it's the fact that you get to know at that level, it's going to be the reason why they stay here. It's not because they're cleaning the hoods or picking the flowers or managing the people picking the flowers, right? So, exactly. And so I think those things are pretty critical when it comes to understanding that's how you develop that culture, because you'd be surprised. I think I did something, I don't remember exactly what it was. I think I used something like a $15 Jersey Mike's gift card or something a couple weeks ago. And my GM comes to me and goes, Nate, do you realize like that like went to like 20 people saying, well, this, and it's like, for me, I didn't think it was a big deal. I'm like, hey man, thanks for working so hard today. Here's a lunch on me type of thing, right? And it was just a reminder somewhere to you in your seminars that just because it's not important to me doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to radiate towards the employees down there that could be far more important.
Exactly.
Right.
And I mean, it's something so basic. I think even if you talk about like a yearly bonus, to us it's kind of a standard, right? But like this past year we had a lot of new employees, and especially in our Northern California office. Our Southern California office has kind of stayed the same. Employee turnover isn't really big, but Northern California, it was a big turnover, and we gave them yearly bonuses. And to me, that's just what happens. Employees who've been with us for a while are like, it's expected. But so many employees were so emotional about it, and they had never received a bonus in their entire like working lives. And maybe it's our industry, maybe I don't know. It's just, it does feel good, but then it's like, it's a realization that like some people don't get things that you are used to giving them. We even give gift cards for Thanksgiving because, go buy your turkey, do whatever you need for your family. And they were just so appreciative of it. And in your mind, it's
not a big deal.
Not a big deal.
I think putting that in perspective though, and not forgetting that just because it's not important to you by no means it's not important to the staff, right? And that's where finding what's important to them or what makes them tick is really critical when it comes to developing that culture, right? Because it's not like, especially if you got 50 or 60 employees among all of your businesses, Green Guard's about the same. And the reality is though, is you're not going to know, you can do your best to know a little bit about every single employee. That's why you really rely on their superiors. But you do what's best for the common good too. And so even though if maybe everybody doesn't want a hamburger out there on Fridays, you get 50 of them that do, and you're still winning, right? And the reality is then they appreciate the fact that you're doing something, and you get a lot of people that recognize it, and they actually show appreciation for it too. And so continue to do that, and then just getting out there. For my position specifically, if I can just go down there like once a week or once every couple of weeks and shake a couple of their hands and just say hello to them, because I have a lot of other things going on. It goes a long way too. So just those small reminders in our positions, I think, goes a long way for employees and getting to know them at a deeper level versus just, hey, they're a good route or they're my best packer or whatever it may be, right? What other things do you guys do there you think that helps develop culture, even if it's just small things or things that you've done in the past that maybe might give people some different ideas when it comes to their businesses? Anything specific? Is it something as simple as cards or contests or anything like that?
I don't know. We've been so big on the contest part because sometimes right now I think, but we definitely like to celebrate, especially after like holiday rushes, and really acknowledge them for just all their hard work. So it really is making more like of a fun, like barbecue environment for them, appreciation, taking the time to go visit them and really spend time with them. We like to do, especially when they're new to the team, because cliques kind of develop. Yep. So you want to do a lot of like icebreakers and really make them feel welcome and really a part of the team, which can be fun. We do, silly things with them.
I can tell you, Green Guard, for birthdays, we go out and buy those like, I don't know, $5 or $10 like ice cream cakes. And of course the guys at night just crush them because they're all into that stuff, right? We do little things like, and this is something that's ongoing though versus it being a specific reason, is we have a nice, like one of those Starbucks coffee machines downstairs that has like cappuccinos and espressos and vanilla and hot chocolate or whatever else you want. And it's unlimited because, working at night, and especially with this lovely 30-degree California weather recently, I'm sure that goes a long way for them. So those types of things I think are really important, and those are some of the things that we do to try. We're also just printed. I own an apparel business. For anybody who wants apparel, shameless plug. Green Guard Printing Apparel. And so what we recently did is we printed off like, I don't know, 70 or 50 hoodies, and we put cool logos on them and everything. And so we originally just going to give them to the people, but then we realized it was going to have to involve requiring them to wear them, and then we got to manage that, and it was just like, we don't want to screw with that. So what we did is say, if somebody does something really good, my accounts receivable person, I said, you collect X amount this week in accounts receivable, you'll get your hoodie. It's not the $25 hoodie or $30 hoodie for her. It's like the contest and the chase. I want to earn this thing, right? And so now we're starting to do that for people, and it's just those little things that like I think gets people going because now it's like they have this cool hoodie, right? So we're always trying to think of different things. I'm also making some T-shirts of Pokemon or one of those kids. I don't have kids, as you can tell. Shirts for one of my managers down there because he wants some shirts for his kids, right? I know that'll go a long way for him versus it being like something where. Because he could go out and buy that, but his boss making it for him and giving it to him for his kid is going to go. So,
and that's definitely that's also something that we're trying to develop more. Our new interim HR.
Yeah.
Is
she's sitting right here, by the way. So.
She's just interim.
AKA her sister.
Yes. Is actually working on that. There's a lot of things that we want to do. There's little things that you see work and you shift them. Yeah, I mean, even, I know it sounds silly, but even this, or not silly, but even thinking about, you don't have to spend as much to make them feel, appreciated sometimes, and, or making sure that what you do spend on is something that you utilize. I could just go back to our health insurance really simply and say we were providing health insurance for all our employees, our CalMax employees in the US, like health insurance that was covered in the US, and they weren't taking advantage of it. They weren't going to the doctors, and in speaking to them, they wanted a doctor who spoke Spanish to them. And through more research, we found SIMSA, which is a border state insurance, and if you're within a certain number of miles from the border, you can go there. It's US doctors, it's a US facility located in TJ, and the insurance price dropped significantly. We were able to cover substantially more of their expense.
And they're using it.
And you're just it covers vision, dental, medical. It's great. And
it's important that you do that.
Really enjoy that.
You listen into what their needs are versus just saying, let's just get everybody health insurance, right? And so we did that a few years ago where we wanted people, this was when we couldn't afford the insurance that we have now. But we asked them, do you want health insurance or do you want 401k with a match, I guess a minor match? I think it was a quarter on the dollar or something, up to a few percent. And we had a lot of people on subsidy healthcare, or I think it's what they, Obamacare, right? And because of the limited amount we could actually cover, people actually would have paid more for our insurance than they would have if they just stayed on subsidy. And that was obviously going to be a negative benefit for them. And most people don't know this, but if you go on health, if you're over 50 employees for an average of 6 months, and there's a calculation with all that, then you're required to. But we weren't at that point. And so we would have done that. It would have been an adverse effect for the employees, but also they probably wouldn't have used it, and then it would have been a complete failure. So we didn't do it. Now that we can offer them better health care, people really have taken advantage of it. And it's been, and they also have the 401k with a match, and it's worked out really well. So similar story to yours, but it's something where you have to listen to the employees and what's important to them versus just sitting up in your office and saying, oh, I think healthcare is going to be good, right? And so that's worked out pretty well for us from a benefit standpoint. Blue collar industries historically don't offer a lot of health insurance, or they'll definitely try to get away from that. I think that's a pretty big benefit, especially when you start talking about people with families. And it was pretty cool that you guys figured out something that was probably unique that a lot of people don't even know about with the SIMSA thing, right? And so,
some people are surprised by it, especially, I think it's really big, especially here in San Diego, when it is very accessible. It is 100% approved by Obamacare, whatever you want to call it.
HR.
Yeah, I don't know what it's called, but it is 100% approved, and it gives the employee all the benefits that they would need, especially if they're more comfortable speaking with a doctor that speaks Spanish and knowing that doctor is certified in the U.S. So that's a big positive thing for our employees.
So I think when we want to wrap up culture today, because we've talked about this in almost every single podcast, I actually just posted a few things recently about it, is what we've learned today talking to Lizette is that, one, obviously culture is extremely important in building it, getting to know your employees, but then listen to what they're telling you too. Don't just sit up in your throne per se as a, an executive or whatever of your company and saying, I think that they just want this because healthcare is the next solution, or I think they just want birthday cakes, or we're just going to give them food during the busy time of year because it's what makes sense, right? Because those are examples of where they would have actually failed in your situation if you didn't listen to what the employees wanted. And if you do that and then are consistent with providing those benefits, it's a good way to start a good culture. We can get into another 2-hour discussion about creating values and mission statements and all this other stuff that's quite important. But doing those things and being emotionally tied within reason to your employees and understanding what's important to them is going to go a really long way. And I think that it'll help with retention, and happy employees makes happy clients every single time. I don't care what people say, it's just the reality, right? Retraining employees is extremely expensive. And so we were talking about that off camera. And so I think those types of things are hopefully what you can take away from today's podcast. Do you have any other parting words regarding that, or no?
No, I mean, it really does come down. Every employee, no matter at what level, is important. Yeah. And one department may not recognize it from another because it happens all the time. Yeah. But every employee plays a crucial part in your success. So you do have to listen to your employees a lot.
So remember, listen to your employees. Listen to them. I know sometimes it can be frustrating. It can be, you might not understand it, but there's a reason why they're telling you what they're telling you, and figure out what makes best sense for both the employee and for the company, and build that culture. And so episode 10, Ms. Lizette, we had a great time today talking about culture, process, working with family on episode 9. Please subscribe, like, share, comment. Startup Nation, say goodbye, and thanks for listening, everybody.